Paul, welcome
Fantastic.
to the Dad Edge, my friend. It's so incredible to have you, man.
I'm grateful, truly grateful to be here with you, Larry.
Yeah, same here. I know we're going to be talking about some serious stuff, but I thought if it's cool with you, I'd love to start with some fun questions first, just to break the ice.
Sure.
Give these guys a little bit of who Paul is all about. So, first question I have for you: what was your favorite sport playing growing up?
I kind of sucked at most sports growing up, but I did. I was, I played, I played baseball, and they put me out in left field because I sucked. Right? They're like, you stay out there. If something happens to come to you, throw it in, Paul.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
played some basketball, but I wasn't tall enough. But I did in high school. I got involved in rugby because all you had to do was just run around and hit people. And we averaged one person per game that went to the doctor or the hospital with something broken. And my mom was like, look, you're just being retarded. I'm not even going to watch when you're playing, because every day I came home with bloody elbows and bloody knees. But it was an organized brawl that was super fun.
Oh man, I've got a good buddy of mine he's really into rugby. He plays on like the national level. And he jokes about it. He's like, man, I love rugby. He's like, but I'd like to meet the guy who invented it. He goes, because I think that guy was probably like, hey, I got a great idea. Let's play football with no pads. Like,
That's right.
and just call it something different. But yeah, man, rugby
We
is
called it an organized brawl. That's all it was. We were just out there fighting, throwing fists.
But there's a lot of like really good life lessons and just good things, resilience and things you learn through playing a game like rugby. Is there has there been any really good key takeaways to life for you?
Key takeaways is if it's a 350-pound Tongan, good luck on taking him down. Right, he's just going to go wherever he wants to go. Right. And seriously, I did learn this life lesson. Right, so and this I taught my salespeople this when we were building the company, and I had a company in my early 20s where we sold a program that helped people overcome anxiety and depression disorders. Right, we had 50,000 people a month calling in off of our infomercial. But what would happen is the very thing that they were fighting, the anxiety itself, would prevent them from using this program that would help them overcome their anxiety. Right, so what would happen is we would drop the price down to make it no anxiety to buy it, just the cost of shipping to get it to your house. And then we would just make payments over the next number of months. And our sales went through the roof, but then our returns went through the roof because everybody's like, okay, I got it. Now I'm scared of this thing, and I sent it back. So I was training the team on how to handle these calls of people wanting to return. And I said, listen, when I was playing in rugby, if I'm lined up against this 350-pound Samoan, right? Or let's say for football, let's just put it in football because people kind of understand the rules of that a little bit better. And if I'm going to just boom, hit him straight on, I'm 100 and nothing pounds. I'm 180 at my best, so, and he's double my weight. I'm not going to win that head on head, right? But instead, so if you're just trying to hit the customer, no, keep it, what do we need to do? Boom. Instead, you need to dance with them a little bit. I said, you need to come on their side of the scrimmage line, right? And be on their team for just a second and walk with them this direction instead of trying to hit them head on. And then as you're walking, say, hey, look at the cheerleaders over there. And then you change his attention. And then, hey, look at over there. And hey, let's walk over here to go get a drink. And now you're walking to your goal line with this 350-pound dude that there's no way you can hit him head on head. And so in the sales side, it was, hey, let's get to know them. Why did they buy the program in the first place? Get on their side of the scrimmage line, walk in their shoes with them. And then as you do so, then you can help them slowly change that direction and realize that keeping the program is going to truly benefit them and walk that way with them. So that's a lesson that I learned that I used building my company.
I love that, man. I had Chris Voss on, who is, I don't know if you know Chris, but former chief hostage negotiator for the FBI. And he always talks about like, we're going to turn this fight into a dance, right? Where we're going to actually be working together, and not like how he talks like that. Yeah, that's cool, man. That is definitely a very good life lesson. just a segue to another fun topic. I'm a man raising 4 boys. You're a man raising 3 boys, and you also have a daughter as well. But what what shenanigans come to mind when you think about raising 3 boys under the same roof?
Oh man. Yeah, we had plenty of crap going on
Yeah,
there. We the good thing is I helped them get their testosterone out of the way in healthy ways. Instead of beating the crap out of each other and whatever. I literally, when they were 4 years old, I would have them sitting on my knee with their eye in the scope, and I've got a long range rifle, and they're doing everything other than taking the brunt of it because it's against my shoulder when they pull the trigger. Right? They're breathing right. They're pulling the trigger at the right. They're lining in the on the crosshairs, everything. And so I taught them how to shoot when they were little, and they got
very cool.
really good, really really good. And
That's
so
awesome.
that was super fun. Having healthy testosterone activities, the ATVs and the, going out in the helicopter and whatever else. And that was healthy. I also realized that they were going to have crazy parties and doing stupid crap anyway. It probably would be a good idea if I bought a house that they could have those parties at our house so that I could have some adult supervision there, because I don't know what the crap somebody else's parents is going to be doing if they're not going to have eyes on them. And so we did. We said, yeah, you're welcome to have the parties here. And but there's no drugs, no alcohol, no sex, and we're going to have a really good time. And they did. And they had a fantastic time being the ones that was throwing the coolest parties.
Yeah, I think that's so important to be able to hone a boy's energy, a young man's energy into something positive like that, like what you talked about. Because I think, if we have a saying in this house now, which is you can raise dangerously good men, but if you don't do it right, you can raise dangerous men. Right. And it's
Yeah.
not going to be for good. I know it's going to be part of what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
It's funny, man. A lot of people ask, like, what's it like raising 4 boys? And my wife and I, like, we actually embrace the energy here. We kind of like it. And the other night, like, we're sitting at the dinner table, and Jessica and I, my wife, were just having this normal conversation. And the boys are literally on the kitchen floor about 15 feet from us, all of them on the ground, the 17-year-old, the 15-year-old, the 10-year-old, the 7-year-old. And they are literally like WWE, like wrestling. My 15-year-old has both the 7-year-old and the 10-year-old, each in a headlock. They're laughing hysterically. The 17-year-old picks up the 10-year-old, gives him a huge wedgie. He's like laughing, freaking out. The other one does the other wedgie. And my wife and I just stopped for a second because we're just literally talking as all this energy is going on. And we're like, if there was a hidden camera in our house right now, probably most normal like families would be like, what in God's name is happening in that home right now? But I'm sure you've kind of experienced some of the same stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
One more fun question for you. And
Sure.
when I did some research on you, I read this and I was like, oh my gosh, this might be one of the coolest things I've ever read. You stole Superman's girlfriend. You gotta tell us about this, man.
This is great. So, my wife is named Ada Vanessa. You can type it in
Right.
Hada, Ada, last name Vanessa. She was pretty well known as an actress in Colombia, and she was in all the TV series, everything else. We actually met in Haiti.
Right.
Haiti is not the romantic place to meet somebody, and she was donating her time at the orphanage. I tell people meeting a beautiful Colombian actress is kind of cool, but when she's donating her time at an orphanage in Haiti, that's amazing. That's my kind
Yeah.
of girl, and she is just all heart, just amazing, amazing. So in fact, she just did her first big U.S. movie. She's an assassin who kills assassins. She's a lead female role. It's called La Soga Salvation. Badass. I mean, she's not very nice in this movie, but she's lead female. She does such a good job. Well, Henry Cavill. We're not talking about the old Superman. We're talking about the Superman that he can flex his pecs and the girls will swoon. right? So Henry Cavill played Superman, Superman versus Batman, etc. He was at her work almost every day. Now,
Right.
they started a date. They went on a few dates. Well, not big enough. It wasn't like, who's his new girlfriend, whatever. They went on a few dates, and then she met me. So I stole Superman's girlfriend. What? There's my mic drop right there. He actually, in her phone, he had his name as Henry Cavill, my future husband. I changed
No
it to
way.
Henry Cavill, the fake Superman.
Oh my God. Yeah, man. When I read
He's
that,
a
I was
good
like,
guy.
he
She
is.
adores him, but yeah,
Yeah.
she tells she'll say, yeah, I wanted a real superhero,
Yeah.
she
Yeah.
refers to the charity work that we do. Now she runs the Child Liberation Foundation. She does a lot of the aftercare stuff. She's working on a lot of new beautiful projects with the kids. And my favorite story about her, my favorite story is this. After we started
I know
dating,
what you're gonna say.
we're going to a gala,
Yeah.
and it was one where I was wearing my tuxedo and whatever. We needed a gala dress for her, and she didn't
Right.
have a gala dress that would be high end for this. And so we went. I found her a beautiful dress. It was about $2,000 dress, and we were getting ready to check. I says, "This is so beautiful," and I didn't even tell her the price. And she looks at the price tag on the thing before we check out, and she looks at me and she said, "Paul, what's the average price? What's the average
Mm-hmm.
cost to rescue a trafficked child?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "It costs an average of about $2,000.
Yeah.
She said, "I'm not wearing a child."
I love that.
She said, "We can buy a $200 dress and we can send the rest of the foundation." And that's when I knew I had a winner,
Yeah.
because her heart was in
That
the right.
You're not kidding, man. You actually stole my next question, because I was like, so you have a story of how you knew she was the one, because I read that too, and I was like, oh my gosh, like that right there is just such an incredible sign that you're with the right person, shares the same values. I mean, that is remarkable, man.
Yeah.
Remarkable.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, she doesn't. We're in Monaco. I was asked to go speak on the back of a bunch of super yachts during the F1 event in Monaco, and one of the guys that was there was Bernard Vuitton of Louis Vuitton Air,
Louis
right?
Vuitton, yeah.
And he heard me speak, and he wanted to. She had never owned a Louis Vuitton purse, or she doesn't buy that stuff. She puts her time and money into charity stuff always, right? And and she had no idea that Louis Vuitton's been around for like 200 years, however long, right? And so he invited us to breakfast, just me and her and Bernard Vuitton, and he's going through these pictures. He's in his 60s, and he's going through pictures of when he was in his 20s, and they're like modeling pictures. And she says, "Oh, modeling?" And she said, "Is that how you got involved with the fashion industry?" Having no idea that Louis Vuitton's been around forever. He
Oh my
didn't even
gosh.
answer. He invited us to his house the next day, and we were there with his wife, and we were walking through this office, opulent, with all these black and white pictures from like the 1800s, with the early 1900s, with the Louis Vuitton family. And she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, he didn't start Louis Vuitton." I'm like, "No, he's been
No.
around for a while, sweetie." But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, she's
That
amazing.
is classic. Yeah, I just going back to that story, it's like, you always have, it's remarkable to hear, when people are, truly happy and just love being married to the person that they're married. And you ask them, like, how did you know? Like, how did you know? And like I said, when I was doing homework on you and that story popped up, I was like, I read that story like 3 times. I was like, am I reading this right? This is like one of the most coolest, most genuine things I think I've ever read about, like, this is how I knew that this was my person. Like, that is amazing,
Well,
man.
you have to understand, for the audience background, I'm I'm the co-founder of a multi-billion-dollar investment fund. $2,000 is nothing, right?
Right.
At the time it was something, and I was so used to dating women who all they wanted was purses and shoes and stuff and everything, and it was super disheartening for me with a lot of these girls that I would date, realizing, am I just a checkbook? Do you not see what I
Yeah.
see and what we can do in the world? And when I realized that she was all about the kids, and still is every single day. Her focus is on the foundation and what we can do to help eradicate child
Yeah.
trafficking.
I'll tell you, so I just saw the movie not too terribly. It was 2 weeks ago. And I'll be very honest with you. I had to really do some research on spoilers for the movie because I was afraid that the movie was going to get my head like really bad. And everything that I was reading said the movie it brought you just to the edge, right, of things without it being so disturbing that you're like, oh my gosh, like I can't even get through that. And I got to tell you, I did watch the film, and I was actually, it's kind of crazy. I'm never in this house alone, ever, with 6 of us here. There's always chaos, there's always kids and stuff going on. And I found myself, I had an afternoon where my wife and the kids were gone, and I was rehabbing my knee because I just had surgery. And I was like, I'm going to watch the movie. And I got to tell you, I was really on the edge of my seat a little bit, like waiting for, and trust me, there was definitely enough that was triggering, but it wasn't over the top to where it was done very, very tastefully. But it was also like, it just lit this fire of like, oh my gosh, like what can we do to stop this? This is absolutely heinous. And for you, I know this started for you, like, I would love for you to just share whatever it is that you want of how this ignited in you is this passion.
I'll tell you this, Larry. I'm super grateful that it ignited what it did in you, because that was the purpose. I knew when I was sitting there in front of this 11-year-old child being sold to me, and her tears stains on her makeup face, and I knew that we couldn't take 8 billion people to see what we had seen. And I was talking to one of the agents that was there, and we were trying to figure out, okay, how do we really, really fix this? And the only way to do it is to take the world on the same emotional journey that I went through for my personal transformation. And if I could take the world on that journey, maybe not as deep and dark and heavy as what I had to experience and my other operators had to experience, but enough so that they could step back and say, you know what? Am I really so focused on hitting that 8-figure mark in my checking account? Am I really that focused on winning this next ball game? Am I really, are they really that important? All this crap that I see as important in my life, is it really as important as I think that it is? Or are there things that we can talk about to make this world a better? Are there people who are living in a place outside of my pretty little bubble that I'm just pretending that doesn't exist, and living my life in this I couldn't unsee what I had seen. I couldn't unfeel what I had felt. And I knew that the only road forward was to create a movement. And how do you create a movement? You have to have enough people feel that same emotion, enough to make them stand up and say, not on my watch. I'm going to
Yep.
do something, whatever it is. I'm going to do something to eradicate this. And ironically, there is things that every one of us can do. And we can talk about that later in the podcast, and we'll go through what it's really going to take. But for me, my personal transformation happened with a few different things. Number one, from a charitable standpoint, I've spent a lot of years focused on child-related charities. I've served with Ronald McDonald House and One Life at a Time, and I was on the board of directors for Make-A-Wish for about 7 years. I was the incoming chairman in the area, and it's because of the fact that for me, from a charitable standpoint, I had a hard time differentiating if that guy on the side of the street that's asking me for drug money is, am I helping or hurting the situation? I can't judge him. I know that. I know that if I wasn't in a healthy home growing up, I don't know if that could have been me on the side of the street. I don't know. So I can't judge. At the same time, I didn't know if I was contributing to the problem by just giving money there. But I knew with a 9-year-old child in a position completely outside of any choices she made, I wasn't contributing. Like in the Make-A-Wish, I could help grant this wish. I wasn't adding to the problem of her having cancer. I was granting her something beautiful that would help change the trajectory of her energy and her healing in her life. And so, with this, when I got that call from our Attorney General in Utah asking me to participate. And well, first of all, he introduced me to a Homeland Security agent who Jim Caviezel plays in the movie, and then asked me to help to fund some of these missions. That made an impact, just being involved in some way. But what changed my life forever was when I was asked to come and play a part. And that first rescue mission, if those who have seen the movie, halfway through when Jim Caviezel's like, if I can convince my wife, he's talking to his wife and he's like, if I can convince Pablo, I can make this happen. I need somebody that can help fund this and actually play a role. Well, I'm that Pablo in real life. And to be honest, we took a bunch of different rescue missions and a whole bunch of different operators and put them all into one storyline with just a handful of characters. Paul Hutchinson is not the only person that funded rescue missions, right? There was a lot of good people. Glenn Beck and his audience put a bunch of money in, but that character had to be defined as to one person, so they put me in there. And the same thing with Jim Caviezel's character and others. There's a lot of good men and women behind that. But that first day, sitting there with traffickers and having one of them lean forward and saying, Pablo, I have a gift for you. And I said, what's your gift? And he hands me his phone, and there's a picture of an 11-year-old girl. That changed everything. That was the first big changing factor. In the movie, it was my driver that gave me this picture of this little 11-year-old girl. In real life, I was already there. And when the trafficker showed me that picture, it just grabbed my heart. He was showing me an 11-year-old talking about really horrible things that we could do to this child. And I thought to myself, if that was my child, if that was my 11-year-old girl, I would give all the money I have to destroy the lives of the guys who were abusing her. I would take a bullet to get her out. And just because the parents of those kids didn't know where they are, didn't have the resources or training that me and the team did, doesn't mean that they love them any less. Or even if the parents were involved in some way, doesn't mean that that child is worth anything less than our own.
When this happened to you, because this happened in real life.
Yeah.
And I believe the way they described her to you is she's a virgin. We call her the princess. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Go ahead.
And when they brought her to me, in the movie, that little girl wasn't at the island. There was she was in the jungle. In real life, the jungle was an entirely separate mission with entirely separate operators that were there. And that was a little boy who was kidnapped in front of a church house in Haiti that we were after there. But in real life, that little girl was brought to the party. And the moment that really changed me was when they brought her out. One of the traffickers stood up. He goes, Pablo, I have to show you the gifts that we brought you. And he goes in the house. The children were in this separate area in the house, and we could hear some crying. A few of the children were starting to cry when he was in there. And I'm sure it's because he was telling them, hey, it's come time to go out here and meet these guys. And they were scared to death of meeting me and my operators, because they thought that this was it. They had already given these kids drugs and these horrible things, and they thought that this was the moment that they were going to be defiled. And he brings them out, and he has 4 children, 4 virgins, super scared. This little boy, he was 11, this little black boy. I think they brought him in from Haiti. I don't remember where he came from. They gave him cocaine that morning because he was so scared that it was going to hurt. I have boys. I have family members who have gone through that hell. And when I found out what had happened to those family members, I wanted to kill the guy that did it. Everything in me wanted to just end the oxygen that he was wasting in my world. But instead, I turned that into a dedication to ensure that that kind of abuse doesn't happen to other children. Because I can't turn a clock back, and just killing the guy wasn't going to fix it. But what I could do is use my time and my resources to fix it for other children before it ever happens. And so I'm sitting there on this chair, literally undercover, pretending to be this guy who is funding this project. This trafficker had a piece of property he wanted to develop into a child brothel, sex resort. He needed a few $1 million to make it happen, and he believed that he could make tens of millions of dollars a year selling children's virginity to wealthy Americans. And I'm sitting on this chair, and he brings out this little girl, the one that he showed me in the picture, the one that they called Princess. And I'm sitting down, same level as you and I are right here. And I'm looking into her eyes, just like I'm looking into yours, straight across. Because she's standing up and I'm sitting down. And all I could see was fear. She was trembling. There was runs on her makeup. They had put this pretty makeup on her face. And she had been crying in there. And you could see the streams running down her makeup. And her eyes were red. And I sat there in front of her, and I held out my hands like this. And she put her hands in mine, and I said, "¿Cómo te llamas? What's your name?" And she didn't answer. Because I'm sure her real name wasn't Princess. She was trying to figure out what she should say, what the traffickers wanted her to say. And I just said, "Está bien, it's okay." And at that moment, I made a promise. I made a promise to myself. I made a promise to God. And I made a promise to that little girl and every child in that situation that I would dedicate my life to eradicating that evil from the face of the earth. And I told the traffickers, we said, "Hey, it's not time for the party yet. Send them back in. Let's sit here and talk." And the most beautiful moment of my life was after the agents came, stormed the party, arrested everybody. 30 Child Protective Services people came in with the children. And they started laughing and singing with the children. And that sound of freedom was the most beautiful sound that I ever heard. This was why we named the movie Sound of Freedom, especially compared to the crying that we heard half an hour before. And they weren't supposed to tell the kids that we were the good guys, but somebody must have said something, or maybe that little girl, maybe she just felt something. Because she was standing there by the door, this screen door, and as we were being let out, and her hand was on the screen door. She was crying again. But she was smiling and waving, and she said in her broken English, she said, "Thank you, Americans." And I broke down. I couldn't hold it anymore. And I turned to the agent who was with me, and I said, "I've spent my whole life trying to make money, making rich people richer, and I want to make a difference. What can I do? Can I write you a check?" And he said, "Paul," he said, "unfortunately, a large part of the demand for this horrible act and these parties in second and third world countries comes from wealthy businessmen who look and talk and dress and walk like you. And he told me about the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world. He said, this is what the traffickers are looking for. And he said, if you're willing to be the bait, I'll change your whole life. And that was the beginning of, now I've led or played a key part in over 70 undercover rescue missions in 15 countries.
Wow. 1,100 episodes. I've been doing this podcast now, and my hands are sweating. Like, just hearing that story, like my hands are sweating. My eyes are misty. My heart's racing. And for a couple different reasons. I think I'm reacting to a tremendous amount of anger, because in that situation, I don't know if I'd have restraint. Like, cause I have a 10-year-old, he's just shy of that 11-year-old. And I'd kill somebody. But also the calming effect and peace that you're out there doing this work, and that other people are doing this work with you. I have to ask this question. Ever since we got you booked on the podcast, there's just something so curious that I have to know. And that is, I think what you're doing is God's work. I really do. Because I think the forces of evil out there that are doing what it is that you're trying to protect children from is pure, just evil, just absolute evil. And so much so that I think the general public and most people don't even want to think about it. Like, oh, that doesn't really happen that often, does it? It just doesn't happen. But there's a certain amount of peace that I get knowing that you're a warrior on the front lines doing this. But the question that I have for you is that while this work is so fulfilling, you're saving children that otherwise wouldn't be saved, over 70 missions, but also, Paul, the dark side that you see, the things that you can't unsee. I can't even begin to imagine, like, how do you deal with that?
I think that the difference between the finite and the infinite will answer the question. So many times we see life in a finite form. How much money is in our bank account, and the number of years that I live, and all of these finite things. And to understand the universe, God's plan, the bigger picture, the healing power of the divine with these children in this life or the next, that this battle between evil and good has been going on for ever. Yeah. And that each one of us get to make a choice every day as to what side of that line we're on, and what we are promoting and what we are pushing. And I for Halloween a few years ago, I went as an angel in devil's clothing. Okay, I was pure white pants, white shirt. I had lights and stuff, and I had angel wings, and I put this dark cloak over the top with this devil head and stuff on the top, because undercover, they have to see that. But inside, I'm as bright as the morning sun, just loving myself and seeing that divinity. Now, I'm not saying that Paul Hutchinson is perfect. Far from it, right? I've made as many mistakes as anybody has in my life, but I know that I can move forward. I can cleanse myself from those stupid things I've done, and I can put my energy every single day into fighting on the right side, into doing good. Now, I will say this: there's a lot of things that, in fact, I'll just go there with this audience. We didn't talk about this beforehand. You can cut this out if you want to, but one thing that I have found was super effective. You need to find a way to get into a deep meditative state. You can call it prayer and connecting with God. You can do so with breath work. You can do a lot of different meditation things. For some people, especially those who have dealt with massive childhood trauma of their own, or some of my operators who their PTSD from being Green Berets and Navy SEALs and killing people and now seeing children being sold, there requires a whole new level of tools to help them shed that trauma. And unfortunately, a lot of these tools were thrown under the bus by President Nixon in the late 60s. Okay, what I'm referring to, you can read a book called Change Your Mind or another one called The Immortality Key, and you can learn how Johns Hopkins University has been doing studies recently on the effects of psychedelics in helping people release that kind of trauma. Unfortunately, there's only a few states where it's become decriminalized. And I'm 52 years old, and my entire life I've been told that those things are evil, that they're as dangerous as cocaine. Psilocybin is about as dangerous as sugar, as table sugar, right? Now, you have to use it in the right way. You have to have a trained facilitator and come in with a very clear intention. But in 24 hours, we can help people release more trauma than 10 years worth of therapy. And so those are some things that, I can go into deeper and whatnot. But for me personally, after about 3 years of undercover work, I was carrying a lot of baggage. I had led a lot of missions, and it was heavy and it was dark and it was difficult and it was destroying the beautiful parts of my life. I was having super dysfunctional relationships. I didn't love myself. I hated the world. I couldn't believe how dark everything was. And those tools helped me to see everything from an entirely new perspective.
Wow. I can see that. I've had good friends of mine. I've had clients that have been through horrible traumatic issues, and a good friend of mine and coworker within the Dad Edge, unfortunately, tragically lost his daughter in a car accident last February, 19 years old. And he went through some of the therapies that you're talking about, and he's like, I actually can't believe how much it helped me. Like, I was very skeptical, and he's like, but it actually was an immense amount of relief that he found, and just looking at it from a different lens. So that makes sense. You have a martial arts background, correct? With Krav Maga, is that right?
Yeah. In fact, most of our really good operators are trained in Krav.
Right.
Just because, a lot of other martial arts, you on purpose, you don't train for things that are going to end somebody's life, right? Or maim them and whatnot. And Krav is a brick to their head and go home to your family. And so, yeah, a lot of our best operators are Krav experts.
The work that you're doing, I look at obviously the operators that you're working with. This is absolutely like dangerous work. Have you ever been in a situation where you're like, I don't know if I'm going home?
Yeah, many times.
And I'm sure.
And I'll tell you this, I think God looks down at what we're doing in business and work, and he's like, you adults deal with that. God looks and sees what's happening with these children and says, no way. I'm not interested in an 8-year-old being raped. And I've seen more miracles in the undercover work than I've seen my whole life. And so I feel very, very protected.
Yeah.
I felt more protected at 2 a.m. in downtown Port-au-Prince, Haiti, the darkest, most voodoo-infested place in the Western Hemisphere, than I did sitting in my office in Salt Lake City, because I felt like we were on a divine mission in fighting that evil. And but yeah, there have been many situations where it could have been very easy for us not to go home. I mean, these guys will sell an 8-year-old They would shoot us in a heartbeat if they knew who we were.
Sure. Right. You mentioned a divine mission, and I'm curious about just as your faith as a man, in God, you see, I would definitely call the extremes, right? The extremes of the most beautiful things out of rescues and reuniting with family, and know that you had a part to play in that. And then you've also seen the darkest realms that the world probably has, and everything in between. I'm curious, what is your faith journey like and relationship with God?
I grew up in a very devout, Orthodox Christian home, and I'm grateful for what I learned there in terms of faith and connection with God. I'm a non-denominational Christian, and I have a closer relationship with my Creator than I've ever had. I believe that every single person on earth was born with the ability to feel and recognize the Spirit of truth, the Spirit of God, and to be led in areas of their life. I felt on every undercover rescue mission. I felt every single one. I felt that divine inspiration. I'm writing a book called Are You Listening? With my hand on my heart, not my hand on my ear, but my hand on my heart. And talking about the rescue missions and feeling that divine guidance and being led to where the children were. And outside of that, in the business careers and everything else, and teaching people how they can connect. One thing I actually have a hard time with about not just Christianity, but the Muslim world, most religions teach that you should go through somebody else to get to God, connect to, you've got to repent talking to this person. You've got to, the hierarchy goes through these men, et cetera, et cetera. And I would beg to differ with all of them and say that every single person can have a direct relationship, a loving connection with the divine, with God, with their higher self. And once we start learning how to connect in that way and not just push that off to the monks doing it or the priests doing it or the bishops doing it, whatever else, but that personal relationship with God, then your ability to be a better husband, a better father, a better mother, all of these things, you'll be able to receive divine inspiration like you've never felt before when you can learn how to quiet your mind and truly listen through the heart.
When's your book coming out?
That one should be coming out within the next 4 months. I would have had it done already, but with the movie as successful as it was, my publishers were saying you need to come out with the stories behind some of the early rescue missions first to just tie yourself together with this movement, etc. You don't want to come out with this, spiritual connection to the universe and to God book right at first. And so that one should be ready within the next month to be available for pre-order and whatnot. That's the beginning of what they call the Child Liberation Series, and it will be called Child Liberation Series, the story behind the Sound of Freedom, and then some other ones. But then book 2 is coming out as Are You Listening? Because that's in this world of confusion, this world of social media, this world where we're being lied to by our governments, by our doctors, by our political leaders, by our parents, by our religious leaders. We need to learn how to identify truth, and it lies within each one of us, and that ability to tune in to that higher source of truth and knowledge.
So cool, man. I'm definitely gonna be pre-ordering that myself. I would absolutely love to read that. You're a man on an absolute beautiful mission, incredible mission. I mean, you talk about making the world a better place, and nothing more pure than saving a child. It's Like I said, my first interview I've ever done where I feel like my hands won't stop sweating just because like the thought of like the things that you see, the things you've done, but all this goodness that's come out of it. I would love as we wrap up here, where do you foresee this mission going in the next 5 or 10 years? Like, what are we celebrating? And like you and I are talking 10 years from now, and you're telling me the things that have been most meaningful that you're celebrating. What are you telling us that's happened?
This is what success looks like, Larry. My role moving forward is not rescuing the 10-year-old from the clutches of a trafficker in Colombia. My role isn't rescuing anybody. My role is to help every man and woman who's listening to my voice go on their own undercover rescue mission. And number one, rescue that 10-year-old inside of yourself. Literally, 1 in every 4 people who are listening to us today, 1 in every 4 people have been a victim of sexual violence as a child. Okay, and most of them never admit it. They don't bring it up. They don't talk about it. But if they can go on a rescue mission and rescue that 10-year-old who was abused, who was hurt, and be able to talk about it and clear that and heal from that, that alone is going to save millions of children in the future. And we can have a whole long conversation about what the root of child trafficking is and where that demand is coming from and how we as society are so broken to the point where it's not just 10 million children being sold in trafficking organizations, but it's literally billions of people, children, who are in our own homes, who are experienced trauma in physical, verbal, or sexual abuse that is trauma transfer from unhealed parents. And so by helping people heal themselves, literally we save millions of children. So liberating the children is one thing. And the Child Liberation Foundation, you can go to liberatechildren.org and get some information on how to keep your kids safe and contribute to some of the safe houses and the healing things that we're doing. We still have operators. It's not me, but there's other foundations that we help to fund that have operations that are going on. You can go there to liberatechildren.org. Or a bigger picture is stopping it before it happens. And that's where liberating humanity comes in. You can follow me on all social medias just by typing in liberating with an ing, liberating.humanity, and get lots of beautiful information about how you can heal, about how you can work through your stuff. And you can go to liberatinghumanity.com, and we have programs on there, everything from we have some Krav Maga programs that we're putting on there soon, and some other things that are situational awareness and tools that you can use to keep your children safe. You can get tools there on meditation work and breath work healing, and even going to fully immersive transformational healing retreats and working through your shit there. This is what the future looks like. Is we all need to wake up. The purpose of the movie Sound of Freedom is so that we could start having these conversations where adults 2 years ago, we couldn't have conversations about child abuse and trafficking. That just wasn't a polite conversation over dinner. Today we can say, okay, now I have your attention. Let's talk about this. What really is necessary for this to change? And this is a conversation we can all have. If you imagine the links on a chain, and our goal is to break this chain because the end link of that chain is the abuse of a child. And we don't want anybody to ever have to experience that. We don't want anybody to get close to that end link of that chain. And then we as adults need to say, okay, what are the links that lead to that? Is it child pornography? Okay, that's probably a link that leads to child abuse. What leads to child pornography? Is it hardcore pornography? Is it abuse in the home? Is it unhealed trauma? There's all these different links in this chain that we can then start talking about and saying, okay, how do we liberate humanity? Because in doing so, if we can liberate ourselves from addictions to pornography, addictions to alcohol, addictions to holding on to our own childhood trauma, etc., if we can clear that, we can help ourselves heal. each person listening to me finding the ways to help themselves heal through that, then truly we make a massive impact, and we heal and we save millions of children before they ever go through that trauma in the first place.
You know what's so cool about this interview, Paul, is that the way we ended here, I didn't expect, because I thought we would point people in the direction of all these different things that we could do to prevent them that are more external. But you really gave us this beautiful compass and direction on we need to heal the person within, especially if we've been a victim of that, or even if we haven't been a victim of some of the things we've even talked about, but our own traumas, right? So we don't then replicate and bestow those traumas onto our kids, right? It's breaking the pattern, right? And we all have that individual responsibility to heal ourselves so we can stop these things. So I love the fact that you gave us, here's some of the external things you can do and ways to support. But what's most important also is that people heal themselves, right? And they
Yeah.
get through that. I love the fact, I didn't expect that you would say that, but I really, really resonate with that.
Well, and it comes down every day to understanding how every action is a ripple effect, positive or negative. We may not be the guy who's looking at child porn or raping a child, right? However, you go to work and you've got this bad negative energy and this attitude, and you're yelling at your employee, and you're calling him a piece of shit and whatever else, and he already has a pornography addiction, and he already is, and he then goes home and he's releasing all this negative energy that you put upon him by then looking at child porn. Whatever it is, there's negative transfer of energy. When I did all the undercover work, I was amazed at the common thread between all of the traffickers wasn't tattoos on their cheeks and earrings in their ears. It was greed, arrogance, and lust, and an uncontrolled negative ego. And so we have to ask ourselves, what things am I doing in my life that are contributing to that global consciousness of arrogance and ego and greed and lust, etc.? And how can we unplug ourselves from that and come from a place of peace and transparency and integrity and love? If we can do that, then we literally, our ripple effect can affect everything around us.
Yeah. You know what's so crazy, man, is that I've noticed, and I think we all have to some degree, that you can change the trajectory of somebody else's day, life, and you could be a total stranger.
Yeah.
Just a quick story to really highlight this. I was in the gym, and as you and I are recording this, I'm 2 weeks post surgery, and I was all in my head because I've been in fitness now for 30 years, and it's my outlet. It's like my therapy. And I was in the gym, and I was frustrated. I was like, man, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. And I was just kind of like all in my head. And this guy comes up to me, really cool. This dude, I have no clue who he is. I still don't know who he is. He's like, hey man, what's up? And I'm like, it's kind of like, I'm like, nothing. And he goes, man, you look like you're working hard, man. Like you're working hard. Like you're working hard in here on something. And I was like, yeah, I just got surgery, and I'm just trying to get through a workout. I'm not trying not to hurt myself more. And I kind of joked about it. And and then he had like this pause, like this kind of, it was almost like an awkward pause. And he's just like looking at me, and he was just like this very happy, nice African-American gentleman. And he goes, don't let it get to you, bro. Don't let it get to you. He goes, you got this. You got this, man. And he like gave me this high five. And I like looked around, I was like, and I immediately just felt so much better. I have no idea who he is. Didn't introduce himself to me. He didn't have to come up and say anything like that. But I'm sitting here 2 weeks later talking about the guy because I still remember that moment. Just a random stranger who comes up to you and just says something that changes the trajectory of your day, your workout. And I'm like, and that is so cool. Like just somehow, some way, just putting some good in the world. Right. And I don't know. If you're listening to the podcast, what can you do today, to be that ripple effect of positivity? I love the fact that you bring that up, Paul.
Thank you, Larry.
Yeah.
Well,
I want to make sure that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
oh, you're good. Keep rolling.
No, go ahead. I cut you off.
Yeah. I think we discount the power of our words, the power of our not just our actions, but our words and even our thoughts. And I want to leave with this. People ask all the time. I went and saw the movie. I went and saw Sound of Freedom. What can I do next? I want to go do something. And the worst thing you can do is go to Colombia and try to rescue kids, right? You're going to get shot, and you're probably going to get arrested. The best thing you can do is go home and hug your children. People say, well, how is that going to affect anything? Well, everything. The majority of these children that were being trafficked, they came from broken homes, runaways, a broken foster care program. That's who's being trafficked. But even more important than making sure that your children aren't in a position to be trafficked is you need a relationship with your children where they can very comfortably come to you and say, Dad, I don't like it when you tell me to hug Uncle Harry because he just makes me feel funny when he hugs me, or I don't like it when I go to this friend's house because her brother touches me on my bum, or this babysitter, she's showing us pornography and tells us that we should trust her more than you. These are all grooming behaviors, and you need to have a relationship with your little girl, your little boy. If something does happen, hey, I was at school, I was at recess, I was being held down by these older kids and they touched me and they did these things. They need to be able to come to you and say something and feel comfortable that you're not going to blow up and kill everybody, whatever else, but help them to heal from that point and that they're not going to be in trouble, because that kind of an open communication with loving parents will ensure that your children are not the ones to be victim. And then from there, like we say, all these other things that we can do to help other children outside of our own. But the best thing you can do is go home and hug your kids.
I love that, man. We say all the time that the mission of the Dad Edge is for men to create legendary relationships under their own roof, because by doing so, we will change the world.
Yeah.
One family at a time, right? And that's exactly what you're saying. I love your mission, man. I want to make sure that for those of the guys who are listening, and women too, we have women listeners, where can men go to find out more information about what you're doing, and also if they want to support you, what is the best way for them to do so?
Absolutely. Thank you, Larry. So number one, if they want to get involved with helping the Child Liberation Foundation, they can go to liberatechildren.org, or you can just Google Child Liberation Foundation, liberatechildren.org. You can donate $10,000. You can donate $1, $5 a month, $25 a month, whatever. I will say this, just like we talked about earlier, the average cost of rescuing a trafficked child is about $2,000. And there's some people that donate a percentage of their business profits, etc. So those are all things you can also get resources there on things that you can do to help keep your kids safe, and to you can learn about the different programs that the foundation is doing in helping to eradicate child trafficking. On the other hand, if you as adult or somebody that wants to get involved with helping to liberate humanity, that's a whole bigger picture. And liberating humanity is something that it's not a 501c3 like the Child Liberation Foundation is a charity organization, 501c3, fully approved there. But the liberating humanity, we're actually investing in healing retreats. We're buying companies or investing in companies that are all of my investment dollars. For years, I invested in real estate and in bulletproof armor and in CBD and all these different things. I've closed down all of that stuff. My entire investment focus moving forward is in things that are going to help to eradicate all of these problems, in helping to liberate humanity. And so there's different programs and stuff that we're putting together, that we're building, that are helping adults find that healing. Or if somebody wants to co-invest with us on some stuff, then they're welcome to reach out to us that way and be a part of some of that progress that we're doing on a bigger scale. And you can find us there on Liberating Humanity. Just type in liberate on all the social media, liberating.humanity, or you can go to liberatinghumanity.com and have access to the website there. And on those ones, you'll also find in the very near future the ability to pre-order some of my books that are coming out that I know are going to really touch the lives of millions of people.
I love it, man. I got to tell you, Paul, I know we just met, but I love you, man.
I love you too, brother. I'm super grateful.
Dude.
I'm grateful for you working all this time to build the audience that you have that enables me to just sit here and turn on my phone and have this beautiful, candid conversation that's going to touch the lives of so many people. I'm super, super grateful to you for that.
I'm grateful for you, man. You are a warrior for goodness, man. Seriously, like, I don't know if I've ever had like such a physical reaction to any podcast interview I've ever done, but like just visualizing some of the things that these kids have gone through, and like you're an absolute freaking angel, man, for these kids. Like I can see like these kids remembering the face of the person who had a hand in saving them. And thank you so much for the work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Together, we can truly eradicate trafficking and liberate humanity. I truly believe we can. Thank you, Larry.
I love that, man. Of course. Gentlemen, you're not going to have to look far. We're going to have all the links in the show notes for Paul, for his mission, his websites, books, the whole 9 yards. If you want to support him, I highly encourage you to do that. It's obviously an incredible cause. Head on over to thedadedge.com/460 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/460. Paul, from my heart to yours, and I think I speak for the entire audience, thank you. God bless you. Truly appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, Larry.
You bet. Gentlemen, go out, live legendary. Take care.